I'm really curious about what that would be called.
It was, you saw the alien. It was attached to that. So yeah.
Oh,
anyway.
wow. The alien. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Alien.
Yeah. Yep. Jeez.
Do you love the outdoors?
Do you love to travel?
Do you love finding hidden treasures in towns all over the USA? Hi, I'm Joshua.
And I'm Craig, and welcome to Treasures of Our Town, the podcast that takes you on a journey to explore the unique and charming towns scattered throughout the United States.
Join us as we venture to some of the country's most intriguing destinations, uncovering hidden gems and local secrets along the way.
On today's episode, Josh, a special guest. I personally have been listening to this man's podcast for a few months now. We can welcome Jeff Wagg from the Built to Go Vanlife podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Episode. So we'll get to that very soon, get to him very soon. He's actually on hold in the green room.
I am so excited to talk to him because, in the words of Johnny Cash, he's been everywhere.
You always have these things, Josh. These things. What have you been up to, mate? In the last 3 days since I've spoken to you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say to you, as an American myself, and as you as an Aussie, Happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, thank you, mate. Yeah. I do get asked often by other Americans as well. Oh, when do you celebrate Thanksgiving in Australia? I have to then explain that we don't have it.
Do you have anything like it? Are Aussies grateful at all?
Well, I ask, what's Thanksgiving about? And people just say, normally they go, turkey, eating turkey and giving thanks. That's what Americans can't really tell me what else it is actually about. So we do that.
That's enough.
Yeah, but we do that at Christmas time. Like, we have a big lunch at Christmas time and, we enjoy family then and family barbecues. We don't need to actually give thanks on one particular day of the year.
I'll just say this. I think Thanksgiving and Halloween are my two favorite holidays. And I love Thanksgiving because different than Christmas, there's a lot of pressure taken off. Christmas, there's a lot of pressure and giving gifts to Aunt Martha and there's a lot of stress around Christmas. But Thanksgiving, it's just enjoy the community that you're around, have a nice meal, maybe watch some football, go for a walk, and call it a day.
Well, actually, at my in-laws, because I normally do Thanksgiving at my in-laws, they've got an open backyard. It's very, very strange compared to Australia. Australia, we've all fenced in. Here, you've got open yards, no fence between neighbors here. It's insane. And there, they don't have any fences between neighbors, no fences at the back, and they open up to a big outdoor woodsy area.
Yeah.
They've got this wild turkey, Josh, that comes every single day to their backyard. They've named him Kokomo. And
I thought you were going to say a wild turkey came just on Thanksgiving.
No.
Easter Bunny.
But he doesn't come on Thanksgiving that particular day. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he can smell it. He can smell it in the oven or what. But yeah, he doesn't come on that particular day. So but that's Kokomo. Kokomo Joe, they call him.
Oh, anyway, I love that.
Very strange. Very strange.
I love that. So I was on the Geocaching podcast this last Wednesday.
Oh, the GCPC.
I was talking all about what we were grateful for because you know what, us Americans, we love being grateful. I don't, I'm a little skeptical about the Aussies, but just talking about what we were grateful for in the geocaching world. So if you're a geocacher listening, and we know we have lots of geocachers that listen to this podcast, make sure you listen to that. The Geocaching podcast. It's a call-in podcast, and
I think it's the only call-in geocaching podcast in the world.
Yeah.
The
love
GCPC.
Those guys.
Scott, Jesse,
and Gal.
Yeah. And Chaz.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? This is sort of a follow-up on a previous podcast. I was scrolling through the TikTok like you do Friday night.
Yeah.
And I was editing video for my YouTube channel. And an advertisement came up on TikTok for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and it was like, it's on, and they were like, it's on right now on Disney Plus. And I turned it on and it was so cool because if you have not listened to the episode, our Cleveland Rocks episode, Craig and I visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm guessing Jeff probably has because as we're going to find out, he's been everywhere. Well, maybe he hasn't. I'm not sure. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Craig, we were big fans of that, and we got to see on the wall who was about to be inducted. So it was fun to actually watch the ceremony.
Well, I've got a question for you, Josh. Who did you? Because in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you can actually vote for next year's inductees. Who did you vote for again? You voted for America, didn't you?
I voted for a band called America, which was in the 70s. You know, I've been through the desert on a horse of no name. They had lots of votes.
Did they get in?
I think someday they will be inducted, but I'm not so sure your choice will be ever inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Boom, 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 boom.
And we're not talking about Queen. They're already in there. No,
ice,
he wants Vanilla Ice, and that will not happen. Please.
He's a Florida man.
Please, rock and roll gods, do not allow Vanilla Ice to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Well, Josh, speaking of ice, I've actually started your Christmas special edit as well for your YouTube channel too. It's looking cool, man. It's looking literally cool.
Also, speaking of Cleveland, right? Because the Christmas episode is going to take place in Cleveland, and that's all we have to say about that. Let's keep it a surprise. But thank you for working on it.
That's right. That's right.
Appreciate it.
And the other thing I've been busy doing as well is the other podcast, the Munzee, the official Munzee podcast. Yeah,
we've talked about your podcasting infidelity.
Yes, yes. You're enjoying it though. You're like a podcast voyeur.
I guess so.
We're going down a rabbit hole that we shouldn't go down, Josh. Just saying.
Yes, exactly.
How about we bring Jeff on, ladies and gentlemen? Jeff Wagg, his name is. He is the host, the sole host of the podcast. I can't think of Built to Go. That's right, Built to Go, a Vanlife pod. And this is how he says it too, Josh. Hi, I'm Jeff Wagg from Built to Go, a Vanlife podcast. He also hosts a YouTube. He does do a YouTube channel, and it's called Built to Go, a YouTube channel. He also does a Facebook group called Built to Go, a Facebook group, and Discord as well. Built to Go, a Discord server. That's what I mean. I've been binge watching or listening to his podcast itself. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Jeff Wagg, welcome, mate.
Well, thank you very much. This is, I feel like this is almost like a job interview, because now I have to talk about myself, and there's a reason I talk about vans, so I don't have to talk about myself, and then yet I have the Tales from the Road segment, which is always, anyway. Hi, thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you, mate. Thanks for joining us.
I don't think you're going to have any problem talking about yourself, because I listen to your podcast. I'm very impressed. I mean, Craig and I, we can bounce off each other, but you are a solo podcast, and you can just keep it flowing. I'm just so impressed. The professionalism is next level, and we can only aspire, Craig, to get there.
I know. Especially doing it solo too, Jeff.
I know. That's tough.
Most of the time you do it solo.
Yeah, most of the time. Now, ironically, let's see. There was a guest hosted episode as I was traveling in the Panama Canal. So for the very first time, I trusted someone to actually do the podcast, and he did a pretty good job. So, typically, I find that I kind of work best by myself, and I have done podcasts with others, and they were fine. But the way my brain works, I seem like this non-scripted, just kind of go is what I do. So I am built to go.
There you go. So, Jeff, how did you actually get started with Built to Go? When did you start the actual podcast, and how did that come about?
I started in 2019. So the podcast was a result of me wanting to listen to a podcast while I was working on my van. I bought an NV200, an old beat-up thing. It used to be a Dairy Queen maintenance vehicle. I knew that because there was ghost signs on the side of the van. I could just barely make out the shape of Dairy Queen. Thought, oh, that's fun. And, it's a lot of work building out a van. I mean, if you've listened to my podcast, you know this. And I was trying to find something to listen to. And unfortunately, I did not find your podcast, because I absolutely would have listened to that. But I listened to all the van life podcasts I could find, and none of them were talking about all the realities of van life. They were like, here's our day, and the cat threw up on the carpet. And I was like, that's fine. Those podcasts are fine. If you're invited for coffee in someone's living room podcast, that's totally a fine thing. Very popular. But that isn't what I wanted. And so I wrote a sketch of what would I really like to listen to. And I decided I wanted a magazine style podcast with different short segments that lasted about half an hour. And I wrote down, well, so what would those segments be, and so on and so forth. And then, 180 episodes in, I think I'm sort of starting to get into a rhythm of it. but I try to approach different aspects of van life. The philosophy of van life is one of my favorite topics. Not, why are we doing this, and how do we intersect with other groups? Like the topic of homelessness comes up a lot because we are often considered homeless by some, and a lot of people who are homeless live in vehicles. So there's a big intersection there. I talk about that a lot, but I also talk about technical stuff like, why 12 volt accessories are better than 110 volt accessories, for example. It's one of my bugaboos. And then I tell a story every week. And I started off telling stories based on my experiences in the van, but very quickly the episode count was bigger than my van story count. So sometimes the stories stray a little bit. And then I recommend a resource, which you guys will be one in an upcoming episode. And I review a product of some sort. That's basically the thing. It's like a magazine. You flip through the magazine. And if you don't like a segment, like you've already got your batteries sorted and you just don't care to hear more about lithium batteries, well, that's all right. If you just wait a few minutes, we'll be talking about taking care of pets in your van or something.
Exactly.
That's where it came from.
I love that. Now to back it up a little bit, you said the philosophy of van life. Now you're based in the Chicago area.
I live in Chicago. Yes, yeah, fantastic. Right in the city.
But you would consider yourself a van life person? Is that?
Yes. So there are van life purists out there.
Okay.
And they get more and more pure to a ridiculous extent. Like I've been told that unless you have a Volkswagen bus, you're not a real van lifer. And I'm like, you know what? People have been living in vehicles as long as there have been vehicles. I mean, think about it. Anything that moved, people have lived in. Remember the wagon trains? What were they living in? Wagons. That was their van. Yeah. They were doing van life as far as I'm concerned. So
I've played Oregon Trail many times.
Absolutely.
I've fjorded the river.
And you absolutely can die of dysentery in a van. It's the same thing. So I'm a big tent kind of person. And to me, van life as a phenomenon is the idea of travel, of being in transit, how you're in a different state of being when you're doing that. And so while I'm not a full-timer, I do not live in my van full-time. I don't pretend to. I do travel a lot in my van, and I would rather be in my van. And someday maybe I will do full-time. But no, right now I'm in my van at least once a week. And I'm starting to collect them now. I've got the ambulance. I've got a 1973 Winnebago that has been redecorated like a tiki shack. That's a whole story. And then somebody said, "Hey, do you want a scamp?" So I have a scamp too. So I have all these different aspects of van life. So anybody who says that you have to be a full-time van lifer to be van life is kind of missing the big picture to me.
Yes. So when did you decide? Was there a point in your life when you decided, okay, I'm going to explore the country or the world through your van, and could you tell me a little bit about your personal process about deciding to do this?
It was a date. I was 50 years old. I'm 57 now. I was 50 then, and when I moved to Chicago, I sold my car. I had a Honda pickup truck, and I lived right downtown, so I just used public transit for years. I was like, look at my vehicle, it costs millions of dollars. It's a whole subway train. And then we got dogs. We moved to a house still in Chicago, and my wife said, well, we're going to have to get you a car here. And then I bought a smart car because my wife has a Scion IQ, which is, get it, IQ, smart. It's like the Scion smart car. And we could fit both of them in the garage. Okay, so I have the smart car, and then I'm 50, and I had been to 48 states. And my wife said, you should really see all 50 states by the time you turn 50, or by the time you leave your 50th year. And the two I was missing, can you guess which two I was missing?
Alaska and Hawaii?
Those are always the two people guess, but no. There's actually two others that are more common. And it's so much so that one of these states, if it is your 50th state, they will give you a prize.
Oh, is it North Dakota?
It is. Yes. That's the 50th. Yeah. So the two I was missing was North and South Dakota. Now, unfortunately, I wanted to go to the Minnesota State Fair. So I actually went to North Dakota as my 49th state and then down to South Dakota. But how that relates to the van life thing is I found myself chasing hotels. Oh, I've got a reservation at this hotel. I have to make it the city, but oh no, the biggest ball of twine is right there.
Yeah.
But if I detour that, I'm not going to get to the... And it was frustrating being tied down to schedules. And I was like, God, if I could just sleep in the smart car, except I'm longer than the car, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. And then I just, I started thinking, and then I found a YouTube video that had the words stealth van in it. I was like, what's that? And it was this video of this guy who had built this van that looked like a beat up work truck, and he was living in it. And then he had his Xbox in there, and he had a disco light, and he had this whole pad set up in his van, and you couldn't even tell from the outside. I thought, that's the coolest thing ever. And so I bought an NV200 and built my own. And that's why I'm on your show.
Yeah. Yeah. And Josh, I've been binge listening, as I said before, to Jeff's podcast. But as always, Josh, like normal people, I didn't want to start where he is actually at now. I've started at number 1. So I'm up to number 80 or 80 odd. And up to the 80 odds, Jeff, you've just actually sold your NV.
Yeah. Oh, that was so hard.
Yeah. And you're still building out your ambulance.
Yeah.
You're talking about how building out the ambulance and the struggles you have about the actual ambulance. And I think I just heard one of your previous ones in regards to you driving the ambulance home after the purchase and people flagging you down because there was a car accident there.
That's right.
And flagging you down, thinking you're an ambulance, and how bad you felt because you couldn't actually help. And again, this is one of the things, as you said before, about the stealth thing about the van and travel. It's like an ambulance. It doesn't matter if the stickers are removed; it's still going to look like an ambulance.
Yeah, no, it's true. And just real quick on that story, in case people are curious, it was night, and a car had rolled over on the side of the road, and I had put blue tape over anything that said ambulance on the van. I hadn't had a chance to remove the decals, but there's no way they could tell I wasn't an ambulance. But I'm not an ambulance. I mean, I don't know what to do. I had a gurney in the back. I could have hauled somebody around somewhere. So I actually did turn around to go back and try to go to the scene, because what I did have was lights. I can light up the world with this thing. And I thought, well, that's at least a little bit of a safety factor. But by the time I got there, the real ambulance was on its way. So I was off the hook. But yes, it's absolutely true. I've kind of had to abandon the stealth idea because no matter what. So in another episode, you'll hear me talk about let your freak flag fly.
Yes. Yep.
Yet another approach to van life. And now my my ambulance has a big, I'm sorry, folks on the radio. I have this symbol. I have a symbol that is like the symbol of everything I do. It's a question mark, a greater than symbol, and an exclamation point. And I have that emblazoned on the side of the ambulance. And now people stop me to ask what it means.
And what does it mean, Jeff? What does that
what does it mean? Well, in comic book speak, it's called hook, waka, bang, because in comic books, they have a word for every character. So a hook, question mark, waka, because it looks like a Pac-Man, greater than symbol, waka, and then a bang is an exclamation point. And what it means is up to personal interpretation. To me, it is a symbol of curiosity. And you can interpret the question mark and the exclamation point any way you want. But what I'm finding is that this really resonates with a lot of people. For me, what I hope it will give to people is permission to pause and ask questions before coming to conclusions. The conclusions are less important than the questions. In fact, the conclusions will change based on new evidence, hopefully. But the questions remain. And anytime I'm frustrated at something or I see a lot of drama happening on the internet, I always go back to this symbol and say, let's back up, put the emotion aside for a second, put all the judgment aside, and ask ourselves questions. We want to do this. Why are we doing this? What are we actually doing? What are our definitions, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. That's what it means. Perfect. And it's also not Googleable.
No, it's not. I've tried.
You can't. So if someone sees me driving down the road, they see the symbol, they're going to have to be really curious to figure out what it is.
And Josh, Jeff is part of the College of Curiosity.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, there you go. I'm actually wearing.
I love that.
Shirt.
In my day job, we do programs on character, and every program we do has a character trait. So one of our programs is actually the Curiosity Retreat.
Oh. Awesome. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, and without becoming political, I love the symbol because a lot of people, they like to shout out their opinions, and
Right.
and a lot of us need to stop, and we've been given 2 ears, one mouth, and really be curious about the things around us. And that's one of the reasons I love travel, is because when we travel around, we learn a lot about ourselves, but of course the places we visit as well. So this is an audio podcast. I'm just going to say the symbol is, it's a circle.
Yeah.
Almost looks like a sign. There's a question mark, and then there's a greater than sign, and then there's an exclamation mark. So I love that. That's really cool, Jeff.
I'll send you guys some stickers if you give me addresses.
Oh, I'll take them. I love the stickers.
I'll take them. Yeah, Josh loves the stickers. They're
put them on my luggage.
As curious people, though, Josh, our listeners are curious people too, because obviously most of them are geocachers or munzee players, that sort of thing. So they're used to the travel, and as our show is our travel is guided by our love of geocaching, etc. Now, Jeff, you know about geocaching too, I heard.
Oh,
on your podcast, I heard in your early podcast, you mentioned the G word, the geocaching word, and my ears pricked up straight away. I went, what?
No, I've done a lot of geocaching. I used to go to Sanibel Island off the west coast of Florida a lot, and it's a very, very isolated kind of a place. It's quite a bit different than the rest of Florida. Anytime a piece of property goes up for sale, this organization buys it so people won't build a house on it. So it's very focused on nature, and there's all these geocaches on there and these places you'd never imagine. So that would be my recreation, is I would just wander about on a bike and, whoa, where's the geocache by the lighthouse today? And a lot of micro caches, little film canisters or the double bottle caps kind of screwed together, but unfortunately the hurricane probably wiped them all out. I don't know what their status is, but I loved that. And then recently I started to get back into it. Now, I don't do it so much anymore because, and you may have talked about this in your podcast, but there are so many geocaches now that we have a botanical garden here in Chicago, and I thought, I bet someone put a geocache here. There were 40. I mean, it was like, well, did you find the geocache in this 10 square feet of land? Because there's another one over there. I even found one on my own property once. I used to have a house in Vermont on 6 acres, and I found a geocache on my property that I didn't put there. But yeah, I love geocaching. I love the idea. I used to play Pokemon Go a lot. I played the Harry Potter game while that was around. I would love to get into Ingress more, but holy cow, that's a time sink. I just don't have that much time. Munzee, I think the idea of munzee is awesome because you don't have to mess with leaving stuff, and caches get trashed over time,
right?
And stuff,
Yeah.
I did actually create a geocache on Coco Cay in the Bahamas. It's now called Perfect Day at Coco Cay. It's Royal Caribbean's private island, and someone stole it from me. And by that I mean is I registered on the geocache.com or geocaching.com website. And then I went back 2 years later, and everything I had put there was gone, and someone else claimed they made it. Which I thought, that's rude. But yeah, I love it. I think it's a great sport to do. And I'm always telling people that every place is interesting. I don't care where you are in the United States. Every place is interesting. Geocaching is just one way to find interest in a place, because you'll find geocaches, I think, everywhere now. I didn't look in Antarctica. I was just there.
There is.
I'm sure there is at like the bases, and I
there's
kind
one
of
on
hope
the space
there's
station, Jeff. There's one on the
I
space station.
heard that there's one on the Curiosity rover. I heard on one of your podcasts recently.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's
there's also
on the
one
rover.
in the Mariana Trench, the lowest point on Earth.
Yeah.
And it was placed by the same person that placed the space station one, an astronaut, that wanted to have the highest and the lowest geocache.
It's going to be a while before that's beaten, I think.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Or found. The one in the Mariana Trench has not been found.
No, I'm pretty confident.
And based on recent news, I don't know if people are going to be going to deep places anytime soon,
especially using a PlayStation controller. But anyway,
I actually had someone contact me to make sure I wasn't on that, because I do that kind of stuff, but not at that level, and certainly not in that vehicle. Just I think I would have been scared off, if not by the price, definitely by the shape.
Well, I know by your YouTube channel, Jeff, as well, because I've watched you do a high location in Canada, where you were off some sort of what was it? Some sort of high point in
Tower.
the CN Tower in Canada.
Yeah, CN Tower. So I live in Chicago. We had the world's tallest building for a while here.
Mhm.
That everyone still calls the Sears Tower, even though it's not. It's the Willis Tower. But I realized as I was on top of the CN Tower in Toronto that I would be several hundred feet above this building that we think of as this tallest thing in Chicago. And if you ever do this, you go up to the top of CN Tower and they put you in a harness. And they kind of push you off the side. I mean, you are only your toes are touching the structure. You're hanging off, and they do everything in meters up there, so nothing really registered in my head because they're a civilized country. And I was peer pressured into doing it. It wasn't something I would have gone out of my way to do, but I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I never have to do it again.
I was going to say, you look like you actually enjoyed it, Jeff, to be honest with you. In comparison to the others that were with you in terms of the group as well, some were very, very frightened. Oh, no, I'm not letting you back any further than this. I'm fine with this. But you actually embraced it. You went, you know what? I'm going to trust. It's Canada, not America, so I'm going to trust their gear and equipment. So you went that way.
Years ago in Utah, I worked at a hotel in Utah called Little America, which is the largest hotel in Utah. I was a night auditor, and some of the guys there said, hey, let's go do some bungee jumping. This was in the early 90s. And I was like, all right, whatever. And we go to this bungee jumping place out in the desert of Utah, and it's out of a hot air balloon. And you ride up in the hot air balloon and jump off. And I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. It's going to feel like you're flying. You can be Superman. And we roll up in there, and the first thing we see is a guy jump out of the hot air balloon. And then we hear this blood-curdling scream, and he grabs the bungee cord, which, folks... Don't ever grab the bungee cord.
No,
and
never.
Whacks him in the face. He's instantly covered in blood. And then he has to hang there as the hot air balloon lowers to the ground. And he just kind of collapses in the dust. And we roll up and they're like, okay, right this way. We'll show you how to get started. I'm like, what have I got myself into? And then when you ride up in the hot air balloon, so it's a 300-foot drop. So I think you have a 150-foot bungee cord. It's a pretty big one. And they make you ride on the outside of the hot air balloon.
Yes.
You just hold on to the basket. And I'm thinking, this cord's 150 feet long. We're only 100 feet in the air. Let's see. If I let go, I'm really going to fall to my death. And then by the time I got to the top and I was supposed to jump, it absolutely didn't feel like I was going to fly anymore. It absolutely felt like I was jumping to my death.
Wow.
And then I was horrified to discover that I could actually do that. And I did. And I jumped off and did the perfect arc. And when I got to the bottom to review the videotape, which they were recording on a VHS camcorder
back
a little while ago, nothing but static.
Oh,
there was no video.
So you can say it was a perfect arc when in actual reality it probably wasn't.
No, I was told that. I was told when I got to the bottom, you did that perfect. But yeah, now I can't even prove I did it.
You didn't come down with blood on your head.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So another thing I never have to do again.
Exactly. Josh, are we going to get started on why Jeff's here as well?
I'm really excited. So on the Treasures of Our Town podcast, it's all about finding those hidden gems, those hidden, sometimes smaller towns throughout the United States. But we have never focused on like one particular town. Like we focused on, Grand Forks, North Dakota, Cleveland, a lot of Owensboro, these places, right?
But we've never focused on small things as well, like Georgia, for instance, in last week's episode. We focused on little pieces of Georgia throughout Georgia, but we haven't actually focused on this today yet, George.
Yeah, but we're going to focus now on any town in the United States by the name of Aurora. So let me say this, Jeff, before you go, and I've always been wanting to say this because I say this every single time I listen to your episodes. Tales from the road. Now, if you listen to one of Jeff's episodes, you'll hear him say that. He says it in the same way each time. Jeff, give me Tales from the Road like you normally do, and then go into these Auroras that you were talking about. First, Tales from the Road, go.
Tales from the road.
There it is. Wow. There, I've heard it live. Wow, Josh, I've been wanting for that for so long. It's insane.
So before we go into the details of these Auroras, high level, please help us understand why Aurora? Why did you want to visit? So you wanted to visit all the Auroras in the United States and Canada maybe too.
There was only one, and it was on the way back, so I was like, sure, I'll do
Perfect. Why Aurora?
All right, so
do you just like the sound of it? Did you just like, boy, is it because there's a lot of them? Tell us, why do you want to visit Aurora?
There's three pieces. Okay, the first off is I had a van that I had just built out and nowhere to go. So like I have to come up with something. I have to go to every national park. I have to do something, every something. And like, but what? I go to a dark sky thing every year in Colorado, in Gardner, Colorado, from the Rocky Mountain. It's called the Rocky Mountain Star Stare. If you want to, we saw the moon of Pluto, Charon, with a telescope there. It's unbelievable what you can see at this place. But anyway, on the way there, I noticed there were a lot of auroras. There's Aurora, Illinois. There's Aurora, South Dakota. There's Aurora, Iowa. And of course, there's Aurora, Colorado. And I thought, why would you name a place Aurora? You know, I understand why you name a place Brookfield.
Yeah.
I know why you name a place, Moon Bay or something. I don't understand why you name a place Aurora. Did you see the Aurora there? And I thought, every place named Aurora has to have something interesting about it because it's called Aurora. And I learned that they're all different reasons. Some of them were named after Sleeping Beauty, whose name was Aurora. A lot of people don't know that, but that
I didn't know that.
Name of the character was Aurora. Others were named after the goddess of the dawn, Aurora. Aurora Nevada was named after the colors of the rocks, which reminded them of the Aurora Borealis.
Oh.
So, but I thought, I thought, well, this might work, but I'm not sure it's going to work. So I went online and, an extremely difficult question here. How many auroras are there in the United States? You'd think that would be a fairly simple question.
Yeah.
Well, what's an aurora? How do you define an aurora? Like, does it have to have its own zip code? Does it have to have a Wikipedia page? Does it have to have a name on a map? And it turns out that's a very difficult question to answer. So I came up with my own criteria, which had to have a zip code that was its own. Like it can't share a zip code. Like it can't be, there's an Aurora neighborhood of Seattle, for example. That's not going to count. Which was good because there's an Aurora in Fairbanks, Alaska. And that was going to be really hard to get to. But I was able to get that out of the way because it's just a neighborhood and there actually wouldn't be anything there. So zip code and a Wikipedia page. I made a couple little exceptions, but they were very minor and they were for good reasons. And then I ended up with a list of 22.
22.
And they were nicely distributed throughout the country. That was something else. I wanted to see the country. And I had been to all 50 states, but still I wanted to have this trip go everywhere. So furthest west is Oregon. Furthest east and probably north is actually Maine. It's up near Calais or Calais, I think they might say it up there. I don't speak Maine, even though I was just in Maine 2 days ago. I feel bad. And then the furthest south was Texas, which is pretty far south. And so I thought, okay, this is a fairly good distribution. It's not perfect. There's a little bit too much in the Northeast. And then I made plans on how I was going to do it. And I came up with, I didn't do it all at once. I did it in sections that made sense because, again, I'm not a full timer. I have, and then I even had a job I had to pay attention to. And every single one that I went to, I fell in love with. They're all interesting. There are no boring auroras. So when you said pick your 10 favorites, I was racking my brain trying to figure out what's a favorite. I mean, but then if I say this one and I don't mention this, and then what about New York? There's 2 of them in New York and they fight over which one's the real one. And so I have done it. I have whittled it down to 10, but I'm not happy about it.
Josh, I will say this: Jeff's number one Aurora, and I don't think they're in any particular order, are they?
No,
Jeff?
I wanted to say that
no particular
this is not,
order.
No, number one is just the first one that I came up with.
Yeah. Number one is in Texas itself. Now, Josh, I had 10 minutes spare before we started the podcast. I did look at the Aurora, Texas, and there's one thing in Aurora, Texas. Number one, there's only like 1 or 2 geocaches totally in Aurora, Texas. But one geocache location is at probably the most poignant reason why you would go to Aurora, Texas. Jeff, what's in Aurora, Texas?
Well, there's an alien buried in the cemetery.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
with his spaceship too. There's spaceships there next to the sign.
it's yeah, I mean, I can't I could easily do a whole podcast episode on each one of these cities, so I have to be careful.
Yeah.
But the story is that in the 1870s, they saw a cigar-shaped object flying around, and it crashed into a windmill in Aurora, Texas, and they found the body and a strange alloy unknown to man.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do with a dead alien? Well, you give it a Christian burial in your cemetery, apparently. You don't turn it over to a university or anything like that.
No,
And
or NASA.
No. Well, there was no NASA back then.
There was no NASA back then,
Yeah,
but still.
it's pre-airplane days, but still. And then what happens when you bury an alien in your cemetery? People come and try to dig it up and try to steal the tombstone.
Gosh.
And it happened over and over and over again. And the last one, I think, was stolen in 2007. And now they've just given up, except they put a massive boulder on top of the site of the supposed grave. And people leave trinkets and stuff on it. So when you find the cemetery now, you'll find this very large boulder covered with what is essentially the stuff you'd find inside a geocache.
Yeah. Yep. I've seen photos, Josh, as well. And in actual fact, I think if I ever attend there, I'll have to have a look at this boulder and see what it's made out of, and probably put an earth cache there too.
You could, yeah. I believe it's sandstone. I'm not entirely sure.
Out of Galaxy Earth cache.
And when I was there, this is an Aurora I visited twice. I did a pre-COVID and post-COVID Aurora tour, and I didn't know it was pre-COVID, but I found out. And that comes into play because when I went back in post-COVID, the town had really grown. And what I'd found was that a lot of these little tiny towns were growing after post-COVID because people were leaving the cities.
Interesting.
So real estate in all these little towns that had been dead for years was going up. In Texas, they finally embraced it. And there was a bar that sold, I even got a sticker here. Martian margaritas. They're out of this world. And they had a little steel flying saucer there, and they had alien snot drinks for the kids. Yes, alien snot. So I'm like, go with what you got, So backing up, the real story is that this Aurora was named because they were trying to attract people here. It was a real estate thing after the Civil War, and Aurora sounded nice. It worked on me just like it worked on them. But nobody came, and they had a cholera outbreak, and all the sheep died, and the cotton died, and then they invented the UFO story to try to attract more people there, or at least to get on the map.
It's a great story. I mean, I think
is a good
probably
story.
all of us have been to Roswell, and it's like that. I mean, their whole town is based on
alien.
You want people to come, just tell them an alien's there or landed there.
That's right.
They had an alien-themed brothel there for a while. So.
Oh, wow.
I think that's closed. I'm not sure.
I'm really curious about what that would be called.
It was, you saw the alien. It was attached to that. So, yeah. Anyway.
Oh, wow. The alien.
Yeah, alien.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. Jeez.
So, that's Texas.
Love it. All right, let's head over to the east side.
All right.
To West Virginia, Aurora, West Virginia.
West Virginia. I have a hard time talking about West Virginia because I went to school there. I was born in Salem, Massachusetts, and I went to Salem College in Salem, West Virginia, and then I went to Salem State College in Massachusetts, and then I went back to Salem College in West Virginia, and no one has ever been able to figure out my college transcript. I actually finally got a degree from Georgetown, but my heart, at least a part of it, stayed in West Virginia. What an absolutely beautiful state.
Yes.
And it's an interesting state because you don't go there unless you plan on going there. There are certain states where the interstates don't connect anywhere you care about. You're always going to go around them. And West Virginia is one of those. Vermont is kind of another, except it's its own big destination spot. But West Virginia is just so wild. I mean, wild, wonderful West Virginia. You see that on the license plates, or at least you used to. I've never been anywhere like it. And we were living in this little town. And when I went to Aurora, West Virginia, I had all these memories flood in. It's such a tragically beautiful place and just so economically devastated with really no chance of ever getting out of that with the way things are. But Aurora, West Virginia is in the hills. It's in the north central part of the state, which it's a weird shaped state. So It's not that far from the Maryland border on the east side, and it's in the mountains. West Virginia is our most mountainous state. Colorado's only 25th, actually. Believe it or not. And they have an old growth of trees there called Cathedral Grove, and it's the oldest stand of old growth hemlocks in the country. So hemlock trees, people get it confused with Socrates. It's not that hemlock. Hemlock is a type of evergreen, a little bit like a fir. If you've seen a Douglas fir, think of a Christmas tree, but it has very flat branches. They have the largest and oldest ones in the country there in this little Aurora, West Virginia. And that's really their only claim to fame. When you go there, you can see that, and it's beautiful. And they also have an old schoolhouse that actually has a working outhouse still next to it. And this was one of those places where I met my major frustration on this trip, which was that they all have these little local museums. They're never open. Yeah. And I want to see what's in there. Right. And it's open like every third Tuesday unless there's a full moon. And so I did the best I could.
Because they're all run by volunteers.
Oh, it is. It is. I used to be one of those volunteers. I know how it is. They have no funding at all. And Jake might go down and open up this afternoon, but his lumbago's acting up, so I don't know. Yeah. But, I mean, absolutely beautiful. There's this one place in Aurora, West Virginia. It's a cemetery, and it seems like they always build cemeteries on hills there, probably because of flooding. I thought of that afterwards. It's like, they just picked the prettiest spot and put the cemetery there. And then I thought, no, it's probably the flooding, because any of the valleys there flood.
See, I would have thought, though, Jeff, it's actually for the views because they're going to be there a while. So
I think, it's both. But a cemetery in the bottom of the valley would be a very bad idea. It wouldn't be there very long. And the view is stunning. I drove up there at sunset, and it was one of the highest spots, and everything's just green and lush, and nothing flat enough to put a soccer field on anywhere that you could see. It's just, a football field, yes, anywhere that you could see. And just beautiful. So I actually cried as I drove out of West Virginia. It was that beautiful. And it had that much of an impact on me, even though it doesn't have a story like Texas does or like Kentucky does, which is on a totally different subject.
Well, let's talk about that in Kentucky, because that's
something real quick before we go there.
Yeah, of course.
I just looked at the map. It is 2 hours, 2 hours drive, west of Martinsburg, West Virginia. Yeah. So Martinsburg, West Virginia is a geocaching mecca because some of the most fantastic geocaches are in this little county in Martinsburg. So
West Virginia Tim,
a legend in the geocaching world. So if you're interested, I agree. I've driven through there. It's beautiful. You're right. You would only go there because you want to go there.
It's true, but you should want to go there.
Yes.
And
Moving on. Kentucky, Aurora, Kentucky.
So Aurora, Kentucky. What's going on there? It's been around for a while. There's a place in Kentucky called Land Between the Lakes. If you look at the geography, this is very strange. It's 3 long lakes that kind of make a square. It's a very strange thing, and of course, a lot of it's man-made. But Aurora was this little town there. It's something of a tourist, not an attraction, but an oasis now. There's a lot of camping and fishing, and that's why people go to Aurora. And they have some old buildings and stuff you can see. But the most fascinating thing there is this park called Cherokee State Park. Now, back in the days of separate but equal, there were parks for white people, but there weren't very many parks for black people. And in this town, they built this enormous resort, beautiful with log cabins and lots of waterfront, just for black people. And they flocked there. I mean, it was a huge attraction. People would drive from Michigan and all these places to go there because it was one of the few places that they could feel comfortable doing the stuff most of us take for granted. And it was a unique kind of, it was actually an example of the state of Kentucky saying, see, separate but equal works. Now, we know better. But back then, this is what people were trying to do. And then, ironically, the Civil Rights Act came, and separate but equal went away, and the park became integrated, meaning white people were allowed to go there. And 5 years later, it wasn't a park for black people anymore. It was a park for white people because they didn't feel comfortable going there. And I'm not going to get into all the politics. I mean, it's a very complicated subject, but it's interesting to visit such a place that had such a historic impact. And you've seen the movie Green Book maybe, or, you understand that black people in the U.S. when they traveled around had to have a book to tell them where it was safe to go. This would have been like the Disney World for them. And a lot of it is still there. So I wandered around there quite a bit and tried to imagine what it was like, and actually bought some postcards of people just having fun. So
I was just going to say, Jeff, I'm looking at them on the map, and yeah, you're right. It's along the Kentucky Lake itself, and it looks beautiful, like gorgeous location to be.
It's very nice. They have a kudzu problem. I will say that. Like much of the southern U.S., there's kudzu everywhere, but it's beautiful. The other weird thing that they have there, if a rocket is built, let's see how this works. In Alabama, there's a NASA rocket assembly station, and if they build a rocket there, it has to go by Aurora, Kentucky to get to NASA.
Oh.
Now, you're looking at the map, and you're saying, but Alabama's way the hell down there. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's the way the rivers go and the way the bridges' heights go.
Oh,
so they actually go north, up and under the bridge into Kentucky Lake, and then they hook up with the rivers and get down to Florida, or to the Atlantic and then to Florida. And one of those rockets hit the bridge and collapsed it, and it cut off these two communities in Kentucky for like 18 months. I actually did a whole YouTube video about Aurora, Kentucky, that details that more. But yeah, again, little place, a lot of people haven't heard of, but you just dig a little bit, and there's so much history there.
Yeah, exactly.
Fascinating.
Yeah. I love it.
I'll bet they have geocaches too because of all the tourists.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
All right. I wonder if the geocaches there, though, would actually be shaped in little rockets. But anyway,
that'd be perfect.
All right, let's go up to, a state I've never visited that I want to visit.
I haven't been here yet.
Aurora, Maine.
So I was just in Maine yesterday. I just got off of a ship in Maine, and not yesterday. Well, 2 days ago. Whatever. Time is an illusion. I love Maine. Maine. I grew up in New England. I'm from Salem, Massachusetts originally, so New England is home to me. Maine is the wilderness of New England. It is this massive state that it's as big as all the rest of New England easily. And if you look at the population distribution of Maine, it's all along the southeast coast. There's nothing else. It's just woods. Appalachian Trail ends up there. It's absolutely a beautiful, wild state in its own unique way. It's certainly very different than Colorado. They both have their wonders, but they're different. Aurora, Maine was a challenge because it's way up there. It was a lot of driving to get there. But I finally got there, and it's endless fields in these rolling, beautiful hills, endless fields of, what do you think they were growing? Because it's Maine.
I see it looks red and orange in the photos.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is though.
So go ahead. Would you take a guess?
Again, I don't know my flora stuff. So, but it says the town is named for the goddess of dawn.
Yeah, that's right. That's a goddess of dawn. It's because it's on the east side of a hill, so the dawn comes up there. Yeah. Now the answer is blueberries. Oh, Maine is famous for blueberries, and this is where they grow blueberries. So the whole place is covered with blueberry fields, and they're just kind of this roll. So, rolling fields of wheat is like an American icon thing. Rolling fields of blueberries, not so much, but it's there and it's beautiful. It's on a road called the Airline, and it's been called that since before airplanes were invented because it skims the mountaintops across northern New England in an east-west fashion. Now, I used to live in Vermont, and one of the sad truths about Vermont is that if you live in Burlington, Vermont, which is on the upper west side of the state, and you want to go to Maine, if you look at a map, you're like, well, you just drive across New Hampshire. No, you actually have to go to Boston and then go up because that's how the roads go. Except for the Airline. The Airline Route 2 is this windy little road that you go by Mount Washington, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it goes right through Aurora. And probably the most famous place in Aurora, other than an old schoolhouse, is an ice cream stand that everyone stops at on the way to Calais or Calais. And I'm sorry, Maynaz, I'm pronouncing it wrong. I should have looked up. I had a really interesting experience at this ice cream stand. First off, if you buy a small at this place, it weighs 6 pounds. The small, so you've got the cone. The small was like 5 times taller than just the cone. It was ridiculous. I can't even imagine what a large would be.
It's an American cone.
Yeah, I mean, almost a Texas cone. I mean, the thing was huge. And so there's 2 women working there, young women about to go into college, graduate from high school. And I just started talking with them and said, this is the biggest ice cream cone I've ever seen. We start chatting. And then in this 5-minute conversation, they represented the 2 youths of America. And by that, I mean, there was this one woman who had spent her life in this small town and was excited to get out and see the world. She was applying to colleges in other states. And, I was that person back then when I was 17 or 18. Massachusetts, blah, I want to go see the world. And then I came to learn later that Massachusetts is actually pretty awesome. But I thought, yeah, okay, I can totally relate to you. And then the other girl or woman, they're right on the cusp there, said, I like it here. This is where my family is. This is home. And, I really don't want to leave. Everything I need is right here. And I was like, boy, if that just doesn't sum up the 2 different approaches to life, we've got people like us who want to travel and go see things. And then we've got people who are very comfortable at home and don't know why they would ever want to sleep anywhere other than their own bed. And these 2, I have a picture of them, and they're dressed in the same uniform. They're in the ice cream stand, totally different outlooks on life. And I wish I just had some kind of window where, in a non-stalkery way, I could actually see what happened to them as they grew up, So, yeah.
One's probably living the van life now. One's probably
could
living
be
the hashtag van life.
It's very possible. Yeah. So sometimes what's interesting about a place is the people. And I learn, I'm not the kind of person to start a conversation. When I'm doing van life, I'm kind of a hermit. I don't really want to interact with people. That's one of the joys of van life, actually, is you're completely on your own terms. But I found that if you're exploring a place, you actually do have to step outside your comfort zone and talk to people, because they are the place ultimately. And that was definitely an experience in Maine.
Definitely. Well, Josh, we're getting on in time now. We've got to hurry this up. We've got 6 more to go. How about we do this? We do Illinois, because that's the next one on the list.
Do it quick.
And then, Jeff, we're going to get like a quick rundown of the next 5 after that.
I can do that.
So Illinois. What's
the most famous? Would you say this is the most famous Aurora?
No,
to me it is.
Sadly, the most famous Aurora is in Colorado because of the shooting at the movie theater with Batman. But second, another movie connection is Wayne's World's Aurora, even though there's nothing there about Wayne's World. Aurora has 2 interesting things. First city electrified with streetlights in the country. Of course, other cities claim that, but Aurora calls itself the City of Lights because of that. Also, where almost every school locker in the United States came from. So if you had a school locker in high school, it probably came from Aurora, Illinois. And
fun fact,
as a van life related thing, back in the early days before motels were invented, some communities would set up camps for people driving across the country. And there's a almost perfectly intact one there. It's kind of been turned into a zoo. But the communal cooking facilities and the fields are still there, and there's plaques explaining what that was. So I think that should be a little bit of a pilgrimage of people interested in van life. Now,
and that always the start of Josh too. I was going to say, going back to the actual the lockers, the school lockers and stuff, that gets me, because we from Australia, we don't have that.
Oh no!
But we see it though in all your movies.
In the red cups and barns.
And when I first come over here as well, I wanted to do all the movie stuff. Whatever I saw in a movie, I'm like, is that actually real? Yes, it's real. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's real. It's like, wow, this is incredible. So yeah.
Yep. Well, that's where they come from.
Yeah, there you go.
So I know we have to move on, but I am a fan of the movie Wayne's World. Is there anything in Aurora that's in the movie?
I don't think so. I'm sorry to say. Kings Dominion Park in Virginia used to have a Wayne's World section, and they had the car and everything in there.
Okay.
I don't know if that's still there, but no, I didn't see any Wayne's World stuff in Aurora. I'm sorry.
All right.
There'd be something to do geocaching or like Wayne's World related for sure in Aurora, Illinois.
Oh, I'm positive.
There. Something. We'll have to have a look, Josh, later on.
Probably at the zoo. No, I mean,
You say Aurora, Nevada is next on the list.
Yeah, now this one I'm going to be very brief about because it's so huge. Aurora, Nevada is a ghost town, and it used to be in California because they didn't have very good surveying tools, and they thought they were building a town in California, but it was actually Nevada, obviously right on the border, not too far from Bodie, but it's a couple hours of off-road driving from Hawthorne, Nevada, which is not a place many people go to, but that's the big town there. It is famous for being a gold mining town, obviously, but it's also famous for where Mark Twain first wrote commercially. That's where he lived. He was a prospector, and he was mining there, and his first commercial stuff, the stuff that actually got published, was when he was in Aurora. It used to be a town of 10,000 people, had something like 70 saloons. It was this huge place relative to the time. And if you go there now, there is a single wall standing. Everything else is completely obliterated except for the cemeteries, because people from San Francisco drove there and took all the bricks to build their homes. That place has so much history, and it goes on and on forever. It's famous for having the grave of a gunslinger there, and it actually says on the tombstone, gunslinger so-and-so murdered by blah, 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 revenge will be ours someday, something like that. Anyway, that requires, I beat the ever-living heck out of my NV200 going out there. It does require some work, but
Does anybody live there?
No, we're not even close. There's an active mine that's nearby, which is good because they keep the road working. Otherwise, you couldn't get there in anything other than an ATV. Definitely worth a Google, Aurora, Nevada.
Yes.
And if you're a Mark Twain fan and you read some of his early works, like Roughing It, I think he's actually written from Aurora. And he calls it Esmeralda, though, the name change.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking at pictures right now. I'm looking at a picture from 1934. It literally looks like something out of a Western.
Yeah, in 1934, it was a Scooby-Doo ghost town. It absolutely was.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And then the San Franciscans came and stole all the bricks.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah.
San Francisco, you'd be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah, so that one I had
leave these ghost towns for real.
That one was an exception because it didn't meet my criteria because it doesn't have a zip code, but it's so cool. I had to. Yeah. And again, there's a whole podcast worth just on that one town.
Wow.
All right.
Next up, Josh.
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Aurora.
So this was my eastern southernmost one. You know, I feel like I should have gone to Florida, but the only Aurora in Florida wasn't worth visiting. So Aurora, North Carolina is in a phosphate mining district, and it is it's a town on the edge of the world, or at least North America's largest phosphate mine. Phosphate is the sediment at the bottom of ancient oceans, and they use it for fertilizer. And massive equipment they use to pull this out of the ground. It's just stunning to watch these things they use. Giant shovels. But they find stuff in it. And what they find are like shark's teeth from, megalodon sharks.
Megalodon teeth.
All those crazy things. And there is a tiny museum in town dedicated to the stuff they've found in the mines. And one of the cool things they do is they'll have the mine trucks come over and just make piles in the parking lot. And you can dig through and find your own shark teeth and fossilized shells and stuff.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
It's really cool. Now, there's another notable thing about Aurora, North Carolina, is they were attacked by a hurricane in 2011, and they just left the town. It's nearly a ghost town. The downtown area has like department stores, and the windows are broken out, and there's still merchandise on the racks. I mean, it's actually kind of sad, but kind of fun too. So that's North Carolina.
Yeah. North Carolina. Wow, there you go. You can dig for your own fossils, Josh. I like it.
Yeah, in a parking lot. You don't even have to get dirty.
Or in a car
That sounds
park,
like a great place to bring kids.
in a place and want to see stuff and don't know what to see, find the cemetery. I mean, consider cemeteries to be geocaches because they always have really interesting stuff. This cemetery was built on an Indian burial ground, literally, because that's where the Indians buried their dead. Oh, we'll bury our dead there too. And then the cemetery grew and grew. And this woman died in the area and wanted to be buried in her Cadillac. So they did. So she's buried in a Cadillac Eldorado that takes up like 30 lots of not lots, is that plots? Wherever you bury dead people, those things. And there's just a big open area, and you know that you're walking on a woman sitting in her Cadillac.
That's so cool.
Just really bizarre little thing in this town.
You'd do that, Josh, with a DeLorean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, maybe. If I had a DeLorean, I might.
You could turn a DeLorean into a camper. I'm absolutely sure of it.
Yes, you can.
Someone did it with
It'd be a small camper.
I've seen actually a photo, Jeff, on your Facebook page with a DeLorean as a camper.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was going around. I forgot about that. Yeah.
You know what, Craig? Aurora, Indiana. They could have knocked down that high school.
That's right.
They could have knocked it down.
Yeah.
But they looked at that high school and they were like, man, we're proud of our high school.
Yep.
Geez.
We're not going to knock that down. That's when somebody's proud of their town, that's a rare thing these days. Did you know that?
Did you know that, Jeff, that Josh has to get that in every single episode?
I'm learning
sometimes.
Yes, I'm learning. Yes. But now
just
that
like
what
your
movie
Tales
that's
from the
from,
Road.
No, what is that?
You know what movie that's from?
No, I don't.
So one of my favorite travel movies is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh, right.
And they're in Wichita, and they take the cab in the middle of the night. He's like, it's in the middle of the night. And John Candy turns to Steve Martin, and he says, well, he's proud of his town. That's a rare thing these days.
So this has become your, they killed Kenny.
Yeah,
exactly. I have to fit it in, and I missed it on one episode. And it was tragic.
He did, and I didn't. I even said it on one episode instead of him too. So there you go. But that was one. Josh, we've got one more left, Ontario. But guess what we're going to do?
What?
We're going to save that for a golden nugget. What do you think?
A golden nugget.
Oh my gosh! How about we wrap up this episode now, and then Jeff, stay on, and we'll do Ontario as a golden nugget for our Patreons. Sounds good. That was your idea, though, Josh. It wasn't mine.
Jeff, I just want to say thank you. We need to have you on the show again.
I'd love it.
You, in your experience, in your knowledge, you are exactly the type of person that this show is about, finding all these nooks and crannies. I mean, who knew? Who knew there was a lady buried in her Cadillac in Aurora, Indiana? Who knew?
Everybody who listens to the
Jeff
show.
knew.
I knew. Yeah,
that's right.
Jeff knew. And this is
knew
exactly the geocachers, when it comes to the Aurora thing, we're always looking for goals, and this whole idea that you were guided by your travel by just the name Aurora, fascinating, and it's exactly the way we think here. So Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. Jeff, where can people find you? We've alluded to it already, but where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, I mean, Built to Go, whatever it is, basically.
Okay.
And if you Google Jeff Wagg, you'll find me too. I used to work for James Randi, the magician, and so there's a lot of stuff about that. But I am not the astrophysicist. So if you come across a Jeff Wagg who's an astrophysicist, I'm happy to take all that glory, but it's not me.
I did, but lucky I knew what you looked like before I knew it was you. So
hey, he's much better looking.
I've got to say this as well, Josh. Built2go.com, that's two T's, not one or not three. There you go. Am I learning, Jeff?
Yeah, that's right. He has listened to my show. Yeah, Built2go.com will link you to everything.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody, if you've been enjoying our podcast, we would really appreciate your support. By supporting us, you're helping us create even better content and keep it free for everyone. So please consider joining us at patreon.com/treasures of our town. And we're going to have a golden nugget from this episode. Yes. We're going to find out the final Aurora of Jeff's top 10.
And Josh, as I said last episode as well, we have a free tier now in Patreon as well. So if you want to join Patreon and get just a little snippet of the nuggets, not all of them, but you get a snippet of the nuggets for free, you can. So go to patreon.com/treasures of our town, and you can join up for free as well. So our next episode, Josh, we haven't actually physically worked it out yet because we're recording in advance, but we'll have it out very, very soon. So tune in for that. But how can people contact us or find us, Josh?
Feel free to reach out to us at treasuresofourtownpodcast@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube.
So that's our show for today. Please subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting app. And as always, Josh,
May your travels always lead you to the most unexpected and amazing hidden gems in Aurora and beyond. See you next time, everybody.
Bye. You didn't say it.
Goodbye.